Hey, it's Jack, and this video is called If You Can Do One Thing to Change Your Life, Do This. Hey, I'm Jack Butler. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here or you haven't yet subscribed, I want to invite you to subscribe. Just hit subscribe and then tap all notifications so you hear of new videos as soon as they come out. I release videos on personal growth, dating, authenticity, and other such topics, and I'd love to have you with us as part of this community. This, by the way, is Marshall Mesa outside of Boulder, Colorado, and it's super pretty. And here, right there, are the famous Boulder flat irons that you'll see on many Boulder company logos and pictures of Boulder in the background. So if you could change one thing in your life, do this. I get asked this sometimes because people are like, what's the highest point of leverage in personal growth? Or if I could just focus on one thing. And you may have heard me say this, I'm going to say it here again. It's to relax your inner critic. If there's one thing that you can do that has a cascading effect across your whole development, it's to get the one that criticizes you off your own back. Because that voice, and just by the way, that voice is typically internalization of a parental voice or a education voice, or maybe even just the norms of culture at large. It's an important developmental structure because it lets you understand, here's how we play in this family, in this culture. So you need it, but then at a certain point, it becomes the barrier to your development because it's constantly nagging you. It's constantly saying you're not good enough. It's constantly imagining that you're letting yourself down. It's just kind of noise there in the background that stops you what? It stops you being more authentic. That's the opportunity. When you get the inner critic off of your back, you have the opportunity to be more authentic, to be more okay with exactly where you are right now in your development. For all its beauty and for all its frailty, this is where you're meant to be. Now, that might be hard to hear if you're having a hard time. I get it. When I've been having a hard time, I don't want someone to say, Jack, the place that you're in right now has been marked by the universe with an X, so it's all perfectly unfolding in right timing. You don't want to hear that when you're having a hard time. And it just may be true. And whether it's true or not, your development doesn't get easier if you're constantly nagging yourself. Yes, there are certain structures, right? So when I think of a really strong inner critic, I think of the thankless task of trying to appease a school gym teacher who's like, get down, give me 10 more push-ups, pull-ups, whatever it is. There are certain contexts where being really tough on yourself or just pushing yourself to the edge can be really important. In extreme sports, for example, you're not going to be an elite level cyclist if you unable just to push and push and push through pain. So there are kind of like survival and peak performance skills that can come from that. But in terms of your maturation, your authenticity, your integration as a human being, it's a poor person to have on the team. And certainly if that person is in the megaphone slot, and certainly if you're not able to distinguish when your inner critic is talking to you or when your higher wisdom, your true guidance, your real self is talking with you. They might sound the same to you. And if that's the case, you might want to go take aim at really noticing and being able to distinguish when your inner critic is there. Because, by the way, they could be saying the same thing at times, but the place they're saying it from, the reason they're saying it, and the tone that they're saying it with are different. Typically, that's our easiest way. Just check this out. It's really beautiful. Typically, that's our easiest way to discern when our inner critic is talking because of the tone. Because the tone is harsh, short, clipped, critical, and it's probably all-knowing, as if there's no gray about whether what it's telling you is the right thing. It knows, and you've got a problem, and you need to sort it out. Now, when that voice is relaxed, what does it allow? It allows you to be with your different parts, right? Maybe parts of you that are less certain, parts of you that are emerging. We sometimes talk about the emerging edge of your development, meaning the places where you are just growing green shoots into new ways of being, those are precious. And the inner critic won't recognize them, because the inner critic is typically going to be more oriented to what has been and what it knows, because it wants certainty, and it wants what? It wants to keep you safe. So we can thank the inner critic and say, hey, thanks for keeping me safe. I appreciate it. And also, I've got this. Or, let me have this. I can speak to you later. Or, get off my back. I really don't need this right now. Sometimes you actually have to take a harsher stance. Whatever it is that allows you to distinguish and kind of push away that voice, or at least start to turn down the volume, or at least start to recognize when it doesn't even sound like you. It's like, oh gosh, yeah, there's my headmistress, or there's my uncle, or there's my mom, or there's my dad, or whoever it is that's actually talking right now, something that got internalized in you, and it's not your true voice. Again, I'm not making that wrong. We all have to internalize things from our parents, and there's lots of great things that we internalize from our parents about how to tie our shoes, how to be wise, how to make choices in life, what the world is, all these sorts of things. But actually, when it comes to your life, your unfoldment, and your own true guidance, that is more of a self-game. That can't come from an internalized voice that's been in you since you were 5 years old, possibly earlier, right? You're now an adult making decisions about your life in this time, in this season, and in this moment, and we need you to have your guidance online. So if I have one wish for you, when you're thinking about setting a goal, or perhaps as you're approaching the new year, if you're setting a New Year's resolution, I would have you take aim at this. I wouldn't have you take aim at a very specific weight management goal, or new practice about the gym. By all means, engage in that when it's appropriate. But if you want one more leverage, if you want something that could actually stick, and you could look back and say, wow, my life really changed, my way of being with myself really changed, I would have you take aim at relaxing your inner critic. Now, what quality do you think you might need in order to practice relaxing your inner critic? Let's have a think about that for a moment. One of the qualities that you might need is the quality of patience. It's almost the 180 from your inner critic, right? The inner critic is impatient, it's critical, it wants something that's probably not happening, and it thinks should already maybe have happened. The inverse of that is patience. I think it's one of the least talked about, most underrated qualities in true personal development. Patience for your own ripening and maturation. So you need patience, I believe, as you're taking aim at relaxing your inner critic. Because if your inner critic has been at least partially or fully running the show for decades, you're taking aim at relaxing a really strong and developed structure in you. And by the way, one that might be reinforced in some of you, got some wind coming up here, that might be reinforced by some of the people around you, right? Maybe your mum that helped install that inner critic is still in your life in a way that feels critical to you. Right? Or maybe you've selected a partner that perfectly picks up on some of the aspects of your inner critic and reflects them to you, right? We tend to do that. So if you want to relax that structure, give yourself months, give yourself years. And that may not sound super glamorous, right? You might want to be into breakthrough personal development. It can happen. We can be open to it happening. But most deeper development takes years, certainly months. And for most of us, we have to get back on that horse periodically to remind ourselves to reintegrate that development. You know, so if you want to take aim at relaxing your inner critic so that you have more ease, more peace, more authenticity, more openness to yourself and to other people, more openness to possibility, right? Because if the inner critic wants to keep you safe, it's going to keep you in the things that it knows. Your direction of development is where? It's into the unknown. And that may sound scary as I say it, but kind of think about it. Anytime you're going to grow a new skill or capacity, apparently you don't already know how to do it. The unfolding of a human being typically is an open-ended loop and system, meaning it's not about getting back to something in the past, right? It's not a kind of romanticism that life was just better back there and couldn't we get back to it, right? This is not make yourself great again. This is become more and more who you really are. And becoming more and more who you really are is something that is inherently unknown, right? We sometimes call this a process of becoming. You're becoming something that you don't know, and you maybe don't even have any idea, right? Sometimes in our moments of most transition, we have least idea what we're becoming. And your inner critic might say, oh, why are you doing this? You should have stuck in the job. You should have just paid the bills. Should have done the thing. You should have kept your head down. You shoulda. But actually, you as an open-ended and unfolding human being, you're going to take some of that stepping into the unknown. Even if you're kicking and screaming, even if you find it really hard, even if you are, right now, the caterpillar starting to liquefy in its process of eventually becoming a butterfly, but it has no idea what it's becoming. So if you're on an inner journey, which if you're listening to this video at this point, I'm pretty clear that you probably are. If you want to evolve spiritually, if you want to live into the truest version of yourself, we want that inner critic off your back. And this could be the most important thing that you take aim at changing in your life. And if you do it, even if you don't do it fully, even if you step significantly on that journey, you will have a different life, you'll have a different experience of yourself, and you'll have a truer experience of your real potential. I want that for you. I'd love to hear if this is making sense. I hope you can hear me with the wind in the background. Thanks for staying with me. I hope you've enjoyed some of the Boulder, Colorado scenery. And as always, I'm Jack. Thanks so much for being here. Leave me a question and comment. I'll get back to you. Take care.